Good evening. I'm Liebe Geft, the director of the Museum of Tolerance, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the museum and The Guardian, which has graciously partnered with us for the special screening of Colette, a film that garnered many awards at various film festivals and is included on the Oscar shortlist of 10 films that are under consideration for the Academy Award for Best Documentary Short Subject. Colette resonates with the Museum of Tolerance on many levels. It is a story about World War II, resistance, history, fascism, political prisoners, trauma and healing, intergenerational friendship, and women. 92-year-old Colette Marie-Catherine is one of the last surviving members of the French resistance. As a young girl, she belonged to a family of resistance fighters that included her 17-year-old brother, Jean-Pierre. The last time Colette saw Jean-Pierre was in 1943, when he was arrested by the Gestapo and disappeared into the Nazi concentration camp system, never to be seen by his family again. The family was inwardly shattered, but outwardly stoic. For 74 years, Colette never allowed herself to set foot in Germany. But that all changed when a young history student named Lucy Fugler entered her life. Lucy was researching the camp in Germany where Jean-Pierre died. The film follows Colette as she travels with Lucy to what remains of the forced labor camp near Nordhausen, Germany. The story of Colette explores how healing from trauma is possible when we find the courage to face our darkest and most haunting memories. We shall have the extraordinary opportunity after the screening to meet and hear from Colette Marie-Catherine and Lucy Fugler, who put aside her studies temporarily for this reunion. They will be joined by the director, Anthony Giacchino, an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker now living in New York, and producer Alice Doyard, an award-winning French producer and director. The conversation with these special guests will be moderated by Academy Award-winning filmmaker Michael Moore. So please stay tuned after the film's credits have rolled to enjoy this amazing conversation. Here now is Colette.
Allez, grande ouverte. Alors où es-tu? Bah, tu vas pas me dire que t'as peur de quelque chose, hein? Non, t'as pas peur. Oui. T'as pas l'air de souffrir, hein?
Colette, vous avez toujours refusé d'aller en Allemagne. Pourquoi, à 90 ans, vous décidez d'aller dans le camp de concentration où votre frère est décédé?
J'ai vu comment se comportent certaines personnes qui visitent les camps et ça me hérisse. Là, c'est différent puisqu'on va honorer la mémoire de Jean-Pierre. Moi, je sais bien que quand je vais franchir les frontières Allemagne, forcément, je ne serai plus la même.
Là-bas, c'est la photo de Nordhausen. Ça, c'est quand les Américains ils sont arrivés, quand ils ont libéré Nordhausen. Et c'est là-bas que Jean-Pierre est mort.
Jean-Pierre.
Catherine.
Jean-Pierre, Catherine. Ah oui, d'accord.
Le frère de Colette. Et là, on a les portraits de personnes qui ont été déportées ou fusillées dans la région. Ces portraits permettent, au lieu d'avoir que le nom tout simplement, ces portraits permettent de mettre une image sur ces personnes qui ont disparu à Dora. En ce moment, je travaille sur le dictionnaire biographique des 9000 déportés de France, passés par un camp de concentration près de Nordhausen. Tous les déportés recevaient ce vêtement quand ils arrivaient dans le camp de Dora. Comme ça, même si c'est une période morbide, assez violente, ça permet de faire de la prévention pour dire plus jamais ça.
Là, on retrouve encore la mention rentrée, mort ou disparu. On a rajouté au crayon, on voit bien Catherine Jean-Pierre, 12-3-26, avec le matricule. Là, il n'y a pas de photo, contrairement à d'autres fiches. TV.
Pour ce livre, j'écris en particulier la notice de Jean-Pierre Catherine. Sur Jean-Pierre Catherine, je ne vais pas m'appuyer que de documents écrits, puisque je vais pouvoir rencontrer sa sœur, Colette. Je vais passer, quasiment une semaine avec elle. Auparavant, je ne suis jamais allée dans un camp de concentration. Ça va être la première fois pour moi, et aussi pour Colette, je crois. Donc, grande découverte.
Lorsque vous serez en pleine guerre, vous vous rendrez compte qu'on n'a pas le temps de ressentir quoi que ce soit. Pendant la guerre, nous étions donc résistants. C'était la recherche des renseignements, la distribution des faux papiers et aussi la collecte des armes. Par contre, un jour, mon frère a été arrêté et déporté aussi. Ça ne veut pas dire que la cicatrice n'est pas visible. Elle ne fait plus souffrir, au moins souffrir.
Je pense que c'est ça.
Alors Lucie, c'est vous?
Oui.
Avanti!
Bonjour ma petite fille. Allez, on y va. Pas trop fatiguée?
Non, ça va.
Bon, alors, avanti. Voulez-vous un café?
Non, merci.
C'est sûr?
Oui. C'est la première fois que je rencontre une ancienne résistante. Du coup, je suis très contente de faire ce voyage avec vous.
C'est bien. Voilà.
Est-ce qu'on peut prendre la photo de Jean-Pierre avec nous durant le voyage?
C'est vrai que cette photo-là est intrigante, elle est intéressante. Elle a été prise alors que Jean-Pierre était arrêté à la prison de la Maladrerie. On a pu aller le voir toutes les semaines. Mon père a commencé à cacher sous sa chemise un appareil photo. Si on avait été pris avec un appareil photo, on se faisait abattre sur place. Ça, c'est un couple, un père et sa fille de Français qui ont pris des photos dans une prison. C'est là l'extraordinaire. Puisque c'était forcément pas permis. Jamais les Allemands ne vous ont dit « Je vous en prie, apportez des photos pour mémoriser votre famille avant qu'on ne la tue. » Bon, alors, asseyez-vous, ma petite fille. Donc, j'ai vu des photos dans les camps. C'est tellement ignoble et abject qu'on ne peut pas le répéter. C'était des horreurs. Je n'ai jamais accepté d'aller faire la tournée des camps, parce que le tourisme morbide, ça ne m'intéresse pas. Si j'avais pas vu ton travail, je serais pas venu. C'est simple.
Et quand vous êtes entré dans la résistance,
Oui.
est-ce que vous êtes entré comme ça spontanément?
Donc entrer dans la résistance. Puis tu sais, faut pas dire qu'on rentre dans la résistance comme si on rentre dans une banque en disant bonjour, ouvrez-moi un compte résistant. Ça tient pas debout, ça.
1940, c'était la victoire de l'Allemagne et la capitulation de la France. C'est à ce moment-là que ma famille a décidé d'entrer en résistance.
Colette, faut que je vous dise, je vous considère comme une héroïne française. Bah quand même, il n'y a eu que 1% de la population française qui a résisté activement avant l'arrivée des Alliés.
J'étais une gamine. On m'a pas demandé d'aller faire sauter un train, ni un pont. On m'a demandé simplement de m'asseoir sur le perron devant la porte et d'enregistrer les numéros des camions qui passaient. Tu parles d'un héroïsme, les fesses sur le caillou et marqué sur un petit papier. On jouait au jeu du chat et de la souris. On a vraiment touché le danger. Plus exactement, le danger nous a touchés.
Est-ce que vous avez eu peur pour votre vie?
Je me suis rendu compte que j'avais couru un risque. Parce que quand la Gestapo s'était intéressée à une famille, on voyait plus personne. Donc on faisait ce qu'il y avait à faire. Mon frère était dans un réseau, moi dans un autre, avec ma mère. Jean-Pierre stockait et accumulait des armes. Ils ont été arrêtés à 7. Il en est revenu que 2.
Je suis très contente que son histoire, elle va être publiée dans un dictionnaire.
Oui.
En fait, là, c'est la notice que j'ai écrite sur Jean-Pierre.
Ah ben ça, je l'ai pas lu.
Ouais, voilà. Quel était le caractère de Jean-Pierre?
En acier, s'il avait décidé de traverser un mur, tant pis pour le mur. Il était redoutable de volonté. Bon, il avait d'avance sur ses études, un esprit méthodique, mathématique, voilà. Ça, c'est Jean-Pierre juste avant son arrestation.
Vous étiez proche avec votre frère.
Pas du tout.
Pourquoi?
Parce qu'il avait 3 ans de plus que moi, que c'était un génie et que j'étais un peu idiote.
Et vous n'avez jamais passé de moments ensemble?
Ah bah si, on a vécu ensemble jusqu'à ses 17 ans, jusqu'à ce qu'il soit arrêté. Mais il faut pas dire que le coup de vous dire « Oh, mon grand frère, machin », c'est pas vrai. Faut arrêter le cinéma de dire « Oh, j'ai perdu mon frère, j'ai tout perdu dans la vie ». Non, j'ai eu beaucoup de chagrin et je continuerai d'avoir du chagrin. Mais nous n'étions pas proches. La France, c'était pour lui la maîtresse inaltérable. Il était très exigeant en amitié, en travail, il était vraiment exigeant. C'était un petit peu ma maman d'ailleurs, parce qu'elle était comme ça aussi. Ma mère, elle était fille et petite-fille d'officier de gendarmerie. Elle avait fort mal vécu la guerre de 14, dans laquelle elle a perdu son papa et ses 2 frères. Ma grande mère de Lorraine, solide. Toujours eu ma mère avec moi, je ne l'ai jamais laissée. D'ailleurs, dans la détresse de l'occupation, ce qui lui manquait, c'était Jean-Pierre. On était en train de parler justement de son arrestation. Et elle m'a dit, et dire que c'est pas toi. Ben, j'ai mis 75 ans à essayer d'oublier ce que ma mère aurait préféré que je sois morte à la place de mon frère. Je suis certaine qu'elle l'a dit, dans la minute où elle l'a dit, elle l'a oublié. Mais moi, pas.
Verehrte Frau Colette, Sie sind aus dem traurigen Anlass hier in der Nähe des Grabes, vermuteten Grabes Ihres Bruders, der in unserer Stadt während der Hitler-Verbrechenszeit ums Leben gekommen ist. Die Umstände am Ende des letzten schrecklichen Krieges habe ich als Kind sehr lebendig durchleben müssen. Wir Deutsche bekennen uns zu diesen Fehlern, zu dieser Schuld und bemühen uns, etwas Ähnliches nicht wieder zuzulassen. Als ich hier in Verantwortung kam als Bürgermeister,
Qu'est-ce que vous voulez que je dise?
Qui s'arrête parce que je vais pas bien.
So, sie fühlen sich nicht gut. Und sie,
ja, Sie möchten, ich bin gleich fertig.
ja, ein bisschen, ja. Eine Pause noch.
Eine Pause.
Eine Pause.
Aber dann kommen wir hier mit dem, draußen mit dem Licht.
Mais j'apprécie, vous dites que j'apprécie, mais je vais pas.
She's very grateful.
Dis-tu que j'ai quelque
She's
chose
sehr, sehr
à dire.
dankbar. Sie ist sehr, sehr dankbar, aber es ist gerade zu überwältigend und zu viel für sie.
Ja,
Daher bitte sie eine Pause.
ja.
Ça va pas trop bien, mais ça va aller, ça va aller. Mais il faut que ça s'arrête. Tout le monde s'assoit, on est tranquille. Arrêtez-vous, allez vous asseoir, tous.
Let's sit down. Okay, alle setzen sich hin. Everybody sit down. Eat, drink, and be merry.
C'est là-bas que Jean-Pierre Catherine il est arrivé le 11 février 1945.
Le bout de la
Voilà.
voie de chemin de fer, c'est là qu'ils débarquaient.
Et après, ils ont marché jusque
Oui.
là-bas où on va aller. Si vous voulez bien y aller.
Oui, mais oui, on va le faire. On va le faire, ma petite fille, on va le faire. On est même là pour ça.
Et dans les recherches, on a trouvé qu'il dormait au bloc 7. Avec ce document-là.
Oui.
Il dormait à même le sol sans couverture.
C'est extraordinaire. Regarde ailleurs, toi. Je ne peux pas y apporter une fleur. Je ne vais rien lui apporter. Allez, on y va. Va, parce qu'on ne va pas rester là 8 jours. Merci, pas plus. Allez, on y va. On peut pas. Voilà. Allez, hop. Elle va rentrer, oui, t'es comme moi. C'est pas mieux. Il n'y en a pas une des deux pour remonter le moral à l'autre.
On se soutient mutuellement.
Donc, et on a fait que la moitié du boulot. Le détail du morbide, je vois pas en quoi ça t'avancerait dans tes études. Et ça peut pas enrichir ta documentation.
Ça va nous permettre de transmettre son histoire, de ne pas oublier le passé.
J'ai mis tant de temps à oublier.
Là, on va aller voir le,
Oui, oui.
le tunnel de Dora.
Oui.
Jean-Pierre, il allait travailler là-bas. Il était affecté au commando 55 en tant que mécanicien.
Si la colline pouvait parler, je pense qu'on entendrait des hurlements.
Il travaillait sur la construction des bombes.
Regarde, ça c'est une carcasse de V2 là-bas. Metal can. C'est effrayant. Mon Dieu, c'est monstrueux. Il fallait absolument le mettre au point, cette arme redoutable qui devait leur faire conquérir le monde.
Il travaillait 24 heures sur 24. Donc le travail, il s'arrêtait jamais.
C'est pas une vie, c'est un cauchemar. C'est l'enfer, c'est Dante sur terre.
Vous voulez rentrer?
Oui. Merci, ma puce.
Est-ce que vous êtes en colère en étant ici?
En colère, j'ai dépassé la colère. Je suis... Je suis un peu dépassée par l'horreur. Est-ce que tu te rends compte que Jean-Pierre a fini là-dedans? Un grand beau gars qui plaisait aux filles, qui était charmeur, qui était brillant. Fini. Ça va se refaire. Ça va aller. Oh, viens ma puce. Ça va? Ouais.
Et qu'est-ce que votre mère, elle aurait dit si elle avait été là?
Oh. Tu sais, si ma mère avait été là, elle aurait été très droite et elle aurait dit « Je ne t'avais pas mis au monde pour subir tout cela. » C'est certain. C'est certain. Elle aurait été très droite. Elle aurait été plus courageuse que moi, ma mère. Elle a toujours été merveilleusement courageuse, cette femme-là. Ah ben écoute, ma petite fille, je vais te faire un cadeau. Parce que la seule chose qui me reste de mon frère, c'est ça. Et je pense que ça va très bien aller à ton... Ça sera un gros doigt. Tiens, ma puce. Tiens. Voilà. Évidemment, elle n'est pas à ton doigt. Et regarde bien. Alors, je t'explique. Jean-Pierre avait 12 ou 13 ans quand il a fabriqué cette bague pour maman. Il avait commencé à graver son nom. Jean-Pierre, tu vois, on voit le JP, mais c'est... Et il n'a jamais eu le temps de la finir. Et voilà. Quand tu seras centenaire, tu sais, une vieille dame, tu auras ça, tu diras, ah oui, quand j'étais jeune, j'avais été. Voilà. Je suis réputée pour ne jamais pleurer. Mais comment veux-tu que je pleure devant des étrangers? C'est pas possible. Hein? Donc, voilà. J'ai pleuré pour les années à venir. Pour toutes les années à venir. Écoute. T'entends? Les oiseaux qui chantent. Qu'est-ce qui sait si les oiseaux ne sont pas les recueils de nos peines ou de nos chagrins? On n'en sait rien. Peut-être Jean-Pierre nous dit qu'il est content. Je suis tout à fait consciente que combattre le nazisme valait tous les risques. Parfois, et même quelquefois souvent, des choses à la fois difficiles et parfois dangereuses. Parce qu'on n'a pas le choix. La résistance, c'était comme ça. Quand on met le petit doigt dedans, tout le reste y passe. Et évidemment.
Good evening. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Moore. I'm a member of the documentary branch of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. And welcome to all of you who've just watched this incredible short documentary entitled Colette. And I have with me here this evening to have a discussion and Q&A. The director and the producer and the two women that were in the documentary. I'd like to introduce them all to you right now, and then we'll have a little discussion. And I guess we have a few questions maybe that if we have time, we'll open it up for that. But so let's, without further ado, introduce the director of the film, Anthony Giacchino. And Anthony, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for doing this with us tonight.
No, very honored to do it. And the producer of the film, Elise Doyard. Elise, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. And I'm also very honored to be here tonight with you and the crew and Colette and Lucy. Very honored.
Where are you speaking from here tonight?
So I'm speaking from London, where I live. I live between London and Paris, and today I'm in London.
Okay, great. And then also joining us are Lucy, I believe her last name I'm pronouncing it correctly, is Faubleu, right? Yes, how do you say it?
Lucy Fauble.
Fauble, Lucy. And Lucy is joining us. Lucy, are you there?
I speak from Sec in the north of France.
Okay, well, welcome. Thank you for being a part of this, and thank you for being a part of this film. And then finally, joining us, I believe also from France tonight, is Colette. Colette, are you there? And welcome.
She's at her desk, very happy to be here, cozy in her armchair, and waiting to speak with Michael, as she calls you.
Michael, okay, I'll take that. It's Elise.
She asks you whether you can smile at her because she likes people who are smiling.
Yes, I think the smile is there. I'm very happy to meet you, and I'm going to speak to you in just a second here. First, I'd like to ask Anthony and Elise, how did this project begin? Where did the idea come from, and how did you meet Colette and Lucy?
Well, it was a matter of, as our editor likes to say, documentary luck, right? We were not, I was in France with Elise, thinking about a different story to tell, another World War II story. And we had a tour guide who was showing us around in Normandy. And at lunch, he just said, I know a woman who was in the French Resistance. Her name is Colette. She's local. I may be able to introduce you to her. And it was like that simple, right? We didn't know anything about her, but as we began to unpack the story after Elise, met her for the first time, we were just like, wow.
Mm.
Yeah, it started with an interview, a simple interview in October 2018. And with Anthony, we thought this is an amazing character. We were blown away by how the tone she was using and how vivid were her memories of the war. And we loved her personality, and we loved what she conveyed about herself and about her brother. And we thought we want to give her voice. We want to show the world what we are living here in her living room, this experience. So we thought she deserves more than a simple interview. And we start, Anthony and me, to think what could be possible with Colette. Colette, she said she had never been and was not keen on going to Germany, where her brother had been deported. But Anthony knew the camp, and we thought maybe there's something here, but what would make sense for Colette to go there? So then started a long conversation with Colette. Trust grew between us. So that she felt we were serious, we were human, we were very friendly. She would be secure with us.
Yes, she liked your smiles too.
Oui, she liked the way we approached her. Yeah. And then, so we thought there's maybe something here that would make sense if we talk about transmission, because Colette wants to transmit. So researching Jean-Pierre, who's Colette's brother, life, we discovered the work of a group of historians who were trying to gather the biographies of all the deportees that had gone to Dora, and this is an amazing work. It's a big book that gathered 9,000 lives, and among the writers of this big book, was this young Lucy Fouble that you will meet. She was 17-year-old at the age. At the time, she was then the age that Jean-Pierre was when he was deported. Mm. She had never gone to a concentration camp and wanted to see what it was. And she was intelligent and smart. We thought maybe there's a good, we could take both of them together to Dora and see whether they would be happy with the project. And Colette said yes. And you see.
we saw during the film how difficult it was for Colette, but also must have been very difficult for the two of you, for you and Anthony, because you are really, with your cameras and your presence, insinuate yourselves into kind of an intimate moments. And it was clear that Colette was not interested in going on a tourist trip. And it must have been difficult, both for her, but also for you and Anthony. Anthony, do you want to speak to that, or?
I'll say, you know, everything when Lucy and Colette met was a very nice meeting. You know, you see it play out as it did in the film. That's the first time that they met. We get on the train, you know, there's sort of like, you know, this anticipation, and you're kind of, as filmmakers, you're just sort of, you're worrying about that moment right there and not thinking too far ahead. But I think the moment that we sort of realized it was going to be a sort of full emotional punch, certainly for Colette and Lucy, but for us, was when they go to the camp for the first time. And just to give you a sense of what that was like, I was, you know, we couldn't fit everybody in that van, so Elise is in the van with them as they're approaching the camp. I was waiting for them at a spot inside the camp, and so I have my earpiece on, and I'm kind of listening, and it's crackling, and I hear, and then finally they're coming into range, and I can hear over already, without seeing them, that there's crying happening already in the van. Elise, you were in the van, and I think.
Yeah, I can. Like in the van, Colette was talking about the trees that we were passing by, entering the camp, and she said, "These trees have been there for years. They probably saw what happened 80 years ago," and this was extremely emotional. So probably Colette and Lucy will talk to you about it. But yeah, you're right to say, Michael, that it was also very emotional for the crew, for us. And you don't. We had this idea that we were there to support them, to carry Colette and Lucy, who was young, and through this journey. And so we were focused on their well-being, and we were focused on them. But as a filmmaker, you don't, you're profoundly impacted, and you don't do this type of feeling without giving yourself. And at the end of these 2 days at the concentration camp, I personally was someone different from before, and
you were different.
So, yeah, I was different. So it caused a lot of things within my own family. Some of them were resistant. My grandparents were hiding Jews. So there's a whole story behind this, why you go for this type of stories. But indeed, to bring such emotions, you give yourself to the film.
Right. You mentioned in the film that only about 1% of French citizens at that time, in World War II, participated in the resistance.
Actively
participated, just 1%.
Before the Americans invaded, right? Before the Americans in 44, before the June invasion.
Right. So what you're saying is what? Once we showed up, then.
Well, I mean, Colette can speak to this, but I mean, look, I asked myself, where would I have been on this? You know, I hope I would have been someone like Colette, but I don't know. You're right. I don't know how I could have acted in a situation like that. And it's interesting to me because Colette doesn't necessarily begrudge these, you know, the individuals who didn't act before.
Right.
I understand that sort of this is a difficult thing, but certainly it was kind of a shocking statistic because I think we have this idea that the French resistance was the French resistance, and they, you know, everyone sort of, you know, was out there, you know, secretly.
Right.
It's not true.
Not true. Yeah. Well, maybe this is a good time to jump in and speak to Lucy and Colette from France right now, and then we'll come back to you guys, or feel free to jump in at any point if you need to clarify anything. We could make this more of a discussion. But so first of all, welcome, Lucy. You were 17 years old when you were filmed here in this.
Yes.
So you are probably 19 or 20 now, is that right?
19.
You're 19, so you're still a teenager. Well, first of all, thank you for doing this. Thank you for caring. And how did you get involved in this? At 17, you must have still been in high school. So I don't want to say it's not shocking, because I know a lot of young people, a lot of teenagers who are very active, wanting to know history, wanting to know what's going on now politically, etc. But I'm just curious, who was that 17-year-old, and how did she, meaning you, come into not just doing the research on what happened in this town in Normandy, but also going to the concentration camp and all that, and meeting Colette?
Ok. Tout d'abord, quand j'ai découvert.
It was extremely symbolic that she was the same age, 17, as Jean-Pierre was when he got arrested. And she was extremely touched that Colette would transmit her story to her directly. So she says also that now she's almost 20, and she's older than when Jean-Pierre died, and she feels that she's given the chance to live a better life, and she's really touched by the parallel between what she lives and what Jean-Pierre could not live. And even during this COVID crisis, what her generation is living today is much easier than what was happening to the same generation. I mean, to the people of the same age 75 years ago. So, and about the film, she was extremely moved to do what she called the pilgrimage with Colette. She was she said that it's she was moved as again when she watched the film for the first time, as if she was living again what happened to her during the journey. And she believes after this journey that nobody can really understand what happened to these guys, these young people who were deportees in a slave labor camp. That you cannot only maybe touch what they lived, but you cannot really understand and comprehend.
Well, I congratulate you, Lucy, for caring and for participating in this, and bringing your generation's being into what is a story from many years ago, 75 to 80 years ago, into the here and now. So thank you for that. I think it's time now to bring on Colette. And first of all, Colette, it's truly an honor to meet you. And I was so moved watching this film. I have so many questions, but I guess maybe my first one is, as a 14-year-old girl, when I heard about this film and was told that the subject of the film was a person who was in the French Resistance, I was trying to do the math, because I'm thinking, well, we're talking, 80 years ago, really, at this point. And 80 years ago would have been 2 years into the war. So I'm thinking, well, how old was this member of the resistance at the time? And of course, you say that you were 14 years old. And I'm thinking, wow, that's pretty young to sign up to fight Nazis. So if you can, just take us back to the 14-year-old Colette, and how this transpired in terms of your involvement. I know you told us in the film you didn't do that much. You were just sitting on a rock, taking down license plate numbers of German trucks, but still, you risked your life at age 14. So if you could speak to that. And again, thank you so much for being part of this.
Eh ben, j'arrive. Bon, voilà, j'ai beaucoup rajeuni. Michael, j'ai donc 14 ans.
I'm very young now. Look at me, I'm 14. So I'm here by my house, sitting on the threshold, and I'm writing down the number of the plates of the trucks that are going to Cherbourg, because this is where the front line is. And I'm just gathering this little information, bit of intelligence, but to me, it's nothing. It's not heroic at all. But resistance is like love. Like you start with little things, and then you cannot say no as it grows, as it continues. So then afterwards, well, she was asked to find cards, food cards, so that people who were hiding not to go on the mandatory work for German, those people hiding from the Nazi could still eat because they needed some cards. So she was organizing these cards. Also, sometimes she was asked to exfiltrate people. Just you take this guy, you bring him somewhere else. So this is these little things that made her finally, from one thing to another, really helping the people, the situation when the Allied landed in Normandy.
But no sense of realizing that 5 minutes from now you could be dead. They could discover what you were up to. At 14 years old, to realize at 14, we all know you feel like you're going to live forever.
J'ai commencé à avoir peur, à connaître la peur.
I was not afraid. I was living a mediocre life, as all probably most resistant of my age. The only purpose was to hide, or to be very discreet, to hide what we were doing. You just don't talk about it at all. This changed when Jean-Pierre got arrested. Then she says,
Je vous rappelle quand, pardon, à vous, Alice.
I started to be fearful when my brother was arrested, because then the implication was enormous. I want to remind you, Michael, that at that time, to lay some flowers on the grave of a pilot shot by an Allied pilot shot by the Nazi, or anybody killed by the Nazi, was could have brought you a death sentence.
Et puis, vous précisez aussi que c'est pour ça.
So Lucie wants to remind us that Jean-Pierre was arrested he was arrested in June 43 for laying some flowers on the grave of someone else, and this was forbidden, and that's why he was arrested.
And was he released after that, or that was it? That was the arrest, and that was
that was it.
They took him away. Wow. So, well, first of all, I want to say to Colette how very sorry I am that she lost her brother, Jean-Pierre. We can see that even though it's many, many years later, the impact of losing your brother still affects you. And I think everybody watching this certainly felt as best we could, considering we didn't have to go through that, your pain. And what's so wonderful about this film is that he lives on, in the sense that he not only now will not be forgotten, he will be remembered by the millions who may eventually see this documentary. But I just wanted to acknowledge my own sense of watching this, and how much what it took for you to go with Anthony and Elise to the former concentration camp. I hope you know that everybody, if I can be so presumptuous to speak for everybody who's watched this, we're walking there with you in that moment.
Moi, je peux dire à Michael que toute cette odyssée.
I've not done anything, she says, I've not done anything that was not to me administrative in the resistance, except when, after the landing, for four months, I was in the military hospital Robert Lyon in Bayeux, and there I took care of the injured soldiers. I cleaned them. I was in direct contact with blood, she says, with everything that covers an injured guy that needs to be cleaned before he's taken to the surgeon. There, I really was giving myself and being in the front line of the war. It lasted 4 months after the landing. This being said, Michael, she says that if you pass by Normandy, she's inviting you for a cup of tea in her apartment, and she will be very honored to see you and host you in person.
Well, I will take her up on that. I have been to Normandy a couple of times to film, and have enjoyed my time there. And of course, I didn't know Colette then, but I will next time I'm there definitely take her up on that, and much appreciation.
Je serais ravie. Je serais ravie.
My uncle was killed in World War II. He was a paratrooper. And my father was also in World War II. And I saw in him growing up that sense that I saw also with Colette in regards to Jean-Pierre, that he never, the sadness and the grief of losing his brother in the war never left him. And on his deathbed, when he was 93 years old, it was one of the last things that he was talking about his brother Lorne, who was killed in the war. Every year we would go to the gravesite, and my grandmother, when she was alive, would come. And in fact, my grandmother was so distraught over the loss of her son. She went after the war and rented a house across the street from the cemetery because she wanted to be close to her son who was lost. So, I'm sure people watching this maybe have their own stories to tell, and could that the war lived on, for many, many years with those who lost people in that war. I have friends in New York who, when it's time for the holidays or Thanksgiving or whatever, there are not a lot of cousins at the table because everyone in the family, those who hadn't got out, were killed. And so they grew up not having that, the aunts and the uncles and the cousins and whatever. So, so I think there's certainly a lot of empathy for what Colette, you know, has gone through and continues to go through with the loss of her brother.
C'est une chance de pouvoir aller sur.
Michael, Colette says it's your grandmother was lucky to have a grave to mourn. Jean-Pierre vanished in a crematorium.
La seule chose que j'ai pu faire, c'est de rapporter un peu de terre.
So she says, what I could do is to bring back from Nordhausen, Dora, some of the earth of the place, and I brought it back to France, to Normandy, and laid it in the garden of our childhood house. In front of this house, I also had set a Stoppelstein, which is an object like a pave in bronze with the name of Jean-Pierre when he was deported, arrested, and when he died. And this is now on the sidewalk in front of the threshold of the family house. And this is for her a way to. This is now the possibility to mourn Jean-Pierre, and these are both objects that she brings back from the camp after the filming.
Wow. When I was 20 years old, I went to Europe for the first time, just with a backpack, and backpacked around Europe, and I stopped in Munich to visit some friends. And I was really shocked at how the Dachau concentration camp was literally just miles outside of Munich, like a suburb almost. How close it was. And I went there and sat there outside the camp for a long time, wondering how people could say they didn't know what was going on here, just literally right there, bordering Munich. Many years later, when Ronald Reagan was president, he announced that he was going to go to Bitburg, Germany, and lay a wreath on the graves of SS Nazi soldiers. And a very good friend of mine from Michigan, his name is Gary, his parents were both survivors of Auschwitz. And so he was very upset that Reagan was doing this. And I said, why don't we get on a plane and fly to Germany and confront Reagan when he comes in the cemetery? And that's what we did. And we snuck into the cemetery, and we confronted him, and the Germans grabbed us, the soldiers and the police, and hauled us out of there and threw us in the back of a truck and took us away. And Gary was very nervous about what was going to happen. I said, no, don't, we're going to be okay. And they drove us 5 miles outside of town and took us off the truck and told us to go away. And where we went was, he wanted to go to Bergen-Belsen, the concentration camp where his parents had been transferred at the end of the war from Auschwitz. And so we went there. And, I was just being a friend and wanting to be supportive of him. And the mounds and mounds and mounds of earth were all, the bodies were buried. It's just such a shocking thing to witness. But I think what's so important about this film is that another generation will be exposed to what happened. The fact that Lucy, as a member of that younger generation, is exposed to it and will tell the story and keep telling the story so that people don't forget, so that people can understand or try to understand how an otherwise civilized people could end up doing such a thing. in a country, Germany, which was a democracy.
Faut pas que les Allemands de ma
The German of this generation, my generation, like in the 45 or 39, 45, they knew what was going on, at least the authorities, and they took advantage of this free slave labor to produce for Germany and to produce things that they would be proud of, but in this terrible condition. So she said they took advantage, but it's the generation of German of this time, and it's not the new generation of German now.
No, that's very clear. As I know, and I have friends in Germany, I'm really amazed at their belief in peace and their belief in helping people. And I have interviewed Germans who make those little bronze plaques because they want to identify the homes of Jews and others who were taken from their homes. And if you walk through Berlin or whatever, you see these plaques all over. So-and-so used to live here until they were taken away. And they're made, you're right, they're made in that bronze that will be there hopefully 100 years from now. So it's very, in fact, I would say watching Colette and her not wanting to go to Germany, not wanting to go to the camp, which is completely understandable. But I remember thinking as a 20-year-old traveling, hiking through France and then into Germany, that I don't know if I want to be in France or stay in France or visit France because of how so much of the country collaborated with the Germans. And I'm just curious. I know you had mentioned that she doesn't she doesn't judge people that didn't involve themselves in the resistance. That's understandable. Not everybody can do what Colette did, but there were so many millions that not only weren't in the resistance, they actively helped the Germans and helped the Germans remove the Jews from France. So, and I've had Jewish friends actually say what she has said about not wanting to go to Germany, say that about France, and wondering how has France redeemed itself for what it did. If that's too difficult, I don't want, obviously this brings up a lot of emotion. So, but I just wanted to share that.
Alors, on va bien préciser. Ma génération,
my generation, they knew what was going on. The following generation, they did not want to see because it was too difficult. So they just pretended that it was like this and they kept on living. So that's why we now we are counting on the third generation, the generation of Lucie, to make it clear, to take account, to make people take accounting of what has happened.
Yes, I would imagine that middle generation after the war probably didn't want to think about what their parents did or didn't do, and so would rather not ask a lot of questions and let's just move on. But I think it's important. Yes, we all have to move on. And then I think it's important not to move on, in the sense that if moving on means forgetting, then that can't be part of moving on. That's just my opinion. But let me ask Colette something. I'm sure a lot of people at the end of this, at the end of the film, we don't really know what happened to you, Colette. after 1945. You made it clear that you did move on and lived your life. But what was that life? I'm just curious. What happened between 1945 and 2020?
Mon Dieu, c'est assez compliqué parce que
when she came back with her mother in 1945, after her mother was a nurse at the hospital, and so when both came back, she said we found a house that had been completely emptied of any goods, of any thing of any values. So this
was their house.
Exactly, their house. And we there were holes in the roof, so it was hardly a house. So, and she says, I had no diplomas, I had no education, I had no money, we had no money, so life was hard. I've been a maid, someone who does everything in a house, just to try to help people who needed such a service. Then I worked as a secretary for 10 years. And finally, I started to work in restaurants and hotels. There I made a career as a running restaurant and hotels.
Are there other members of the family that are still alive, or are there children? Are there just some curious?
Okay, my love life. My love life.
No, I
loved men. I loved men that loved me, but they are dead. I will not resent them from dying before me. My last companion was my last partner was an exceptional man, but he died. I took care of my mother until my mother turned 40, who stayed with me, and she died of a cancer. I was 40. It was too late for me to have children. I took care of my father, who was paralyzed. I also took care of my half brother, who was was deported. Also, he was rounded up by the German when he was during the war, not because he was a resistant, but because he was hiding, not to go to as a volunteer for this, not life, as mandatory STO, like mandatory work in Nazi Germany. And he came back from the camp very weak, very sick, and Colette took care of him. To sum it up, I started to, only recently, I could take care of myself and myself only. And all my friends who were former resistance fighters, they are, now that I am 92, I see them dying one after another, and I'm very sad.
Yes, yes. Colette, I'm curious of what you think of Lucy and Elise and Anthony, and your involvement with them and their interest in your story. That this younger generation was interested in telling your story. I'm curious now, after having been part of this film, I assume you all stay in contact with each other, and but I'm just curious, especially of your feelings about a teenager named Lucy and her involvement in this.
Bon. Alors, avec le film, il y aurait
our relation, it's all this would have not happened if she had not met me, because she loved the way I approached her with my question and with my background and what I wanted to do. Okay, so this is when I talk about the 6 months of building trust. Then there was Anthony that she also loved at the first sight, even if he, with all the crew, he invaded her apartment, because we had 12 people in Colette's apartment. It was crowded, but she was running the show, but she loved Anthony. So then she thought, okay, I trust this team, and I will go with them to Germany if they think it's a good idea, because I see what it would mean for me too. And during the filming, I was scared as the most precious person of the team. And she remembers another team member who took care of her, Theodora Archambault, who helped her on a daily basis. She says, I felt with all this crew like in a nest. And during this filming, I had the chance to meet Lucie Fouble.
Oui, voilà. Alice
and Anthony, they offered me a granddaughter in the person of Lucie. And I was afraid. I am quite strong, so I was okay to see the camp, but I was very worried about Lucie because she's fragile, so I needed to take care of her. And I was very worried with Lucie, but Lucie was amazing, and we have this bond now.
Lucie, how does it feel to have a new great grandmother? And how well did Colette take care of you there? That's very sweet.
Lucie said that she is very touched every time Colette named her as her granddaughter. It is indeed a very strong bond that grew between them, and she remembers in the camp how much Colette took care of her. She was hugging her, she was comforting her. She really was the ideal grandmother. And now, when she has an adoptive great grandmother, and when they try to meet each other as often as they can, and Lucie is always very thrilled when Colette introduces her as a granddaughter.
Lucie, I as a young person, you're now witnessing in France, in Germany, across Europe, and here in the United States, a rise of a new right wing of nationalists, of white supremacists. I'm just curious because of your very intense involvement in telling a story from a past era of people who were white supremacists and fascists, etc. I'm just curious your thoughts as a 19-year-old now, and what is happening today in France, in Germany, and the US.
Okay, so indeed, the last thing Lucie has in mind is this January 6th at the Capitol, and and particularly this man who had this sweater with Auschwitz written on it. She says that the repression that the Nazi operated on minorities, like Jewish, but also minorities like Tsigan and homosexuals, and this can come back. And she says that the role of her generation is to say, stop, not again this. And she believes that the film can be a tool pedagogy, an educational tool to her generation to prevent this from happening again and raise awareness.
Aussi, c'est que les jeunes générations, je pense que
and my generation, you know, they need, I mean, she says her generation needs images to understand things. They are impressed by images much more than words or a book. And so this, when they see what happened, and when they see a film like this, they understand and they remember.
Did Colette want to add to that or say something to that?
Oui, on a parlé d'Alice tout à l'heure et j'ai pas fini. Quand nous sommes partis dans
during the time in the camp, she could feel how Lucy reacted to her to what Colette was transmitting, how Lucy understood the phenomenon, and Colette believes that Lucy is well equipped to transmit again to the new generation what she lived during the camp.
Et je vais ajouter un truc, enfin quelque chose.
Lucy wants to add something that she finds very important. She wants to answer to people who says, "Oh, the concentration camp, slave labor camps should have been erased totally." And she says, no. It's already so difficult to have to remember or to transmit, to educate, to what happened in this camp. If you don't have the remainings, the leftovers to ground your explanation, then you've lost you've lost the connection to the new generations or to people who don't believe that it happened. So it's extremely important to keep it, all the more that people who experienced it are dying now.
Well, I think you, Elise, and Anthony, the director, you've done a wonderful thing bringing this story to so many people and making this film. And it's been shortlisted for the Oscars, meaning the documentary branch of the Academy has voted amongst the 100 or 200 shorts that were submitted, has voted this film, Colette, as one of the 15 on the short list. And we are going to vote this week on who should be the 5 nominees. So I'm just curious, Anthony, should Colette the movie be nominated for the Oscars? Is there any chance that Colette might be able to join you and Elise at the Academy Awards in April?
If we were so lucky to be honored with that, I would say, first of all, I think I can speak for Elise. I mean, we're so grateful that we are where we are, and if this is as far as we get, it's wonderful. If we do get nominated, we would do everything we could to make that happen. Everything, whether that be virtually, I mean, of course, the way things are, I can imagine it would be very difficult, COVID-wise.
Yes.
But if we were permitted, we of course would have Colette sitting between us, even if that means three
squares. Yes. So Colette, let me. I know we're out of time here, but I wanted to ask you, how surreal does this seem that now at this point in your life, this film that you are the subject of, I don't want to say the star of, but it's, this film about you and this portion of your life that took place in the 1940s, that you would end up at the Academy Awards, that you would end up in a film that's been shortlisted for the Oscars, and the fact that you may either attend, either virtually or in person or whatever. I'm just curious how this is hitting you and how you're processing the fact that your story is being shared and told to so many people now around the world, and has been acknowledged by the Academy. And yes, and what are you going to wear to the Oscars? I'm just asking for a friend.
Oui, alors mon petit Michael.
She calls you my small guy because you're a kid to her. You're 60, so you're a kid to her.
Bon, alors mon petit, écoute bien. Imagine.
Okay, so she says, Michael, my little kid, hey, imagine I was when I was 16, I had nothing on the to wear because we were so poor. So now I'm very happy. What am I going to wear? Well, maybe this. And it's amazing, of course. This all this Oscar possibility, what's happening with the Academy Awards. It's something unbelievable. But I have no doubt. I'm not the hero. I'm just the
hero. Is that what you said? Not the hero?
Yeah, she said, I'm not the hero. I am only the not the object, the pion. Like I am I am the thing that Alice and Anthony have helped me to be. And I want to say that this is the same when I was in the Resistance. I was just obeying orders that was given to me, and now this would happen. So it would happen that we are at the Again, je vous entends. So I forgot what she. So Colette.
She's saying, when is this guy going to shut up? He's like, this was supposed to go 45 minutes.
No. She wanted to say something again. So yeah, Colette, si jamais on est nommé, qu'est-ce que vous faites? Vous venez avec nous aux Oscars?
Volontiers, mais vous allez m'avoir sur les bras, c'est pas forcément un cadeau. Mais ce que je veux
The Oscar is a statue on a pedestal, okay? And I am don't take it wrong. I am not the statue. I am the circle, the pedestal on which other people are putting me.
Well, I will say, if I can speak on behalf of those who are watching this, that, you know, there aren't many people still alive who are in the resistance. Very, very few, I would assume, are left. The fact that this film got made by Anthony and you, Elise, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, nobody would be able to make this film because so many have passed, and so it's a real gift that this happened in this time, in this moment, with one of the few surviving people of the resistance. And so I thank you for this, and I think that if this film is nominated, wow, it just to have Colette's beaming smile being beamed around the world, and thus telling people about this wonderful short documentary. You've all done a good thing, and I'm so grateful for it. And I want to thank the Museum of Tolerance, who helped to put this event on tonight, and to everybody else who had something to do with it, to you, Elise, and to Anthony, and to thank Lucy. I hope if nominated, also she can attend. I think that would be wonderful with her adopted great grandmother. But also Colette, I just want to close by thanking you for who you are, for what you did, for allowing us to remember, so that this story is passed on, so that Jean-Pierre is never forgotten. And I look forward to having that tea with you in Normandy someday. Thank you for that. And thank you for calling me little. I will carry that with me for the rest of today. But we're out of time. So Colette, thank you so much. This has been such a joy.